Well, belated Happy New Year to all of you, and thank you very much for coming over for this first briefing for this year. I have a couple of announcements to make, and then if you have any questions. The announcements I have to make is, the first one is about the visit of the External Affairs Minister to France. External Affairs Minister Mr. Salman Khurshid will be traveling to Paris, where he, on 10th and 11th of this month, he will have bilateral discussions with his counterpart, Mr. Laurent Fabius, and will also call on the President of France, Mr. François Hollande. As you are aware, the last visit of a foreign minister from France was in 2011, when Mr. Alain Juppé had met his counterpart then, Mr. S.M. Krishna. Subsequently, in July 2012, on the sidelines of the Tokyo Conference on Afghanistan, Mr. Krishna had met his counterpart, Mr. Krishna had met his counterpart in July 2012. And this is, of course, Mr. Salman Khurshid's first meeting and his first visit to Paris. In addition, I have a couple of other announcements, and these pertain to the visit of the Deputy Prime Minister of Vietnam, Mr. Wu Van Ninh, who will be arriving in New Delhi shortly. We have separately sent you an advisory for his meetings in New Delhi. Tomorrow the External Affairs Minister will be meeting him, and we will also have a media interaction subsequent to that meeting. Finally, my third announcement that I have is about the meeting of the BRICS High Representatives for National Security. This is on the 10th of this month. We will send you a separate media advisory, but it is expected that the high representatives from Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa will meet at the Jawaharlal Nehru Bhavan. And subsequent to that meeting, we will also have media interaction by Mr. Shiv Shankar Menon, the Indian National Security Advisor. Thank you very much. I have no further announcements to make, and in case you have any questions, I will answer them. Yes, Sharat.
Would you please elaborate more about the visit of the Mr. Khurshid to France? What will he discuss with his counterpart? Thank you.
If I may start, there's been a long gap between the visit of an Indian External Affairs Minister to France the last time and now. It's almost a decade. So there is a lot to catch up in terms of a visit to Paris. As you know, France is a member of the Security Council and is involved in a variety of international matters. And it is expected that Mr. Khurshid will use the benefit of that visit to discuss with him a series of global issues. In addition, India and France have a very robust bilateral relationship. For example, our trade in 2011-2012 was approximately $8.9 billion US dollars. For your information, about 800 or so French companies have their representative office or other forms of representation in India. More than 100 Indian companies have their representative offices or subsidiary offices in France. France, by my understanding, is the 9th largest investor in India over a period of a decade or so, say from 2000 to 2012. On the other hand, India is fast emerging as a major investor in France. It is the 13th largest investor in France over the last 5 or 7 year period. So there is a lot of issues to discuss. In addition, as you are aware, we have a very elaborate relationship on nuclear matters. And finally, there are defense cooperation agreements which are in the pipeline. And all these issues will be on the table for discussion when the two leaders meet. Yes.
Can I ask something different?
No, let's finish this. If there is anything else on the bilateral part, and then sure. Yes, Ranjit?
What is the status of Jaitapur nuclear power plant?
The Ministry of External Affairs is not the right ministry to answer the status of a nuclear establishment or a nuclear power plant. So therefore, I think it would not be fair on my part to respond to what is the status. But my understanding in terms of the bilateral relationships are that the negotiations on that are continuing between France and India, and we hope to have an update on that when we go to Paris. Hey, one by one. Parul?
I want to ask, has France allayed any fears that India might have on nuclear power after, Fukushima?
I think we have a very, very sound atomic energy establishment. So the fears, if any, are a matter which we need to articulate to the public rather than within our nuclear establishment itself. India and France, along with other countries, are involved in nuclear safety through the IAEA. There is a safety convention where all countries who are interested in nuclear power do meet, and there have been extensive discussions on Fukushima and its aftermath. So the issues are not that our scientists have concerns, but how to convey and allay concerns of the general public which are there and which are genuine through perhaps a public outreach program by our nuclear establishment.
What are the precise reasons for our deepening our engagement with Vietnam?
Let me try and take you back. After 1954, after Dien Bien Phu, Pandit Nehru was amongst the first leaders to visit Vietnam. Similarly, Ho Chi Minh visited India way back in 58. So therefore, our relationship is something which goes back several decades. As far as the current phase is concerned, the Vice Premier of Vietnam is coming in connection with the India-Vietnamese Year of Friendship, which is at its closure, and he's coming for the closure event. For those of you who followed this previously, the Minister of State for External Affairs, Mr. E. Ahmed, had visited Vietnam last year in January for the start of this festivities. During this time, there have been extensive activities by our mission in Vietnam, and this is the closure of that event. In terms of our trade with Vietnam, my understanding is it's approximately, in 2011, it was approximately $4 billion, with the balance of trade in favor of India. And we expect that in 2012 also it would be in the same vicinity or a little higher. Our major exports to Vietnam are in terms of pharmaceuticals, also machinery and auto parts. From Vietnam, interestingly, its mobile telephones and accessories are emerging as a major area. And there are others, for example, coffee, a bit of coal, etc. We also have a very robust technical assistance program with Vietnam, where approximately 150 Vietnamese students avail of ITEC scholarships. There's been an increase from about 75, which was there previously. So we have regular exchange of visits. The last president of India had visited Vietnam in 2008. Subsequently, their president has also visited here in 2011. So high-level visits and interactions are integral and intrinsic to our relationship with Vietnam. It's neither new nor has it deepened suddenly. It's been established, and we actually are celebrating 40 years of our bilateral relations. Yes. One more. On Vietnam.
But could you just give the current status of the Indo-French nuclear deal, and why no nuclear business has accrued from France? Is it a fact that the French also, like the Americans and the Russians, are rather intimidated by the Indian nuclear liability laws? And if I may insert another question here.
No, one question is enough. You've already
just
asked.
One liner. The agenda of the BRICS NSA's meeting.
I think I will only answer the first question, because I think we need to be very understanding of each other. We have several others here in this room. So let's go on number one issue. I think some of the terms you use are certainly way beyond what I would ever use. Anybody who has worked with nuclear issues should be aware that from the time you begin discussion on a nuclear power project to the time it reaches its culmination, it's normal to be at least 6 years or more. This is normal in nuclear because it is a very sophisticated technology. It has a lot of issues that you need to tie up. It's not only in terms of legal infrastructure, but also technical issues, regulatory issues, etc. Having myself worked in a nuclear establishment for some time, I'm aware that there is no country in the world where nuclear from the start to the end product takes less than a decade. And this is normal. Now, as you said, as regards the nuclear liability issues, these are issues which have been raised from time to time by several of our partners, and I think we are very transparent in that, saying that our parliament has passed a law. We can work within those four corners of that law and try and work out solutions within that pattern. And it is now for our partners to understand this, and we are certain that they understand where we are coming from. It is within those broad parameters that we can work out solutions, and let me assure you that we are working them out.
But if I may ask you on this nuclear thing, with the Russians, when it comes to Kudankulam 3 and 4, India has expressed its willingness, rather conveyed its willingness to the Russians to double up, in fact, the prices of the nuclear reactors will be almost doubled up the price. So have we come up with a similar kind of a proposal for the French?
Listen, when techno-commercial negotiations are underway, I think it's not quite appropriate that we start speculating on how much the price will go up. That the price will go up is a known factor, because if you have new requirements, it's likely to happen that some requirements each of requirement entails a cost. But that said, I think what you talked about, double up, is, I think, not what the facts could warrant in that case or in any other case. But sure, these are ongoing negotiations, so let's not sit here and decide how much it will go up with. And I think it's in the public domain that these techno-commercial negotiations will lead to perhaps an increase in price. Yes, Sachin.
Is it possible to talk a bit about the supply of ENR technology from France? Apparently there was some sort of verbal assurance from the previous French president, Mr. Sarkozy, but now that he is no longer there, Has this been impacted in any way?
I do not know. We haven't had senior level discussions on this at this stage. Maybe when we come back from Paris. And let me tell you, ENR is a sophisticated issue which has implications of a variety of things. And it's not that we are going in for that now. Again, if any of you followed these will take more than a decade should this come about. So let's not discuss this in a very sort of easy manner at this stage. These are issues which are fairly complicated and complex and will take time to work out. So anybody else on this, and then we can move to something else.
ईरान की तरफ से इंडिया से डिमांड की गई है दवाइयों की जो लाइफ सेविंग ड्रग्स हैं, उसके बारे में अगर कुछ जानकारी है तो बता दें सर.
मुझे कुछ जानकारी नहीं है इसके बारे में. Anybody else on France or Vietnam or anything else? Okay, if you don't have...
Vietnam, I want to ask.
Yes.
Number one about defense cooperation, and number two about deals on oil exploration. Are we going to get new blocks, or have we found any gas or oil, or what has happened? And are we going to stick on? How much longer?
Well, I presume that let me lay the facts on the table and then you can take it from there. And that is that we already have gas which is coming out from Vietnamese wells, which we have been drilling for quite, and it started way back almost a decade ago. Now, I think your reference is to the blocks where there was this debate in last summer when the oil lease for those blocks, which is 128 and 127, if I'm not mistaken, were to expire in last June. At that stage, we had indicated that our technical assessment was that it was not a commercially viable proposition at that stage, given that you need to get equipment which is pretty costly to hire, etc. And at that stage it was difficult and it was not a viable process to go ahead with. The Vietnamese government and the Vietnamese oil organization had then provided us a 2 more year option to consider this and decide on it in 2014, June 2014. So we are at this stage in the process of the ONGC evaluating whether, given the time that we have more for this, whether it would be techno-commercially viable. And we don't have to provide an answer to this until June 2014.
These are the same blocks, right?
Yes, the same blocks. Yes, Mr. Venkatnarayan.
Chinese had some reservations about our getting involved in oil exploration in what they consider to be part of their territory. Did we have any bilateral or trilateral discussions involving China and Vietnam on this matter?
No, we have not had any discussions on this matter. Yes, anything else now? Sure. Yeah. Yes, Ashish?
So there's a case of some Yemen embassy diplomats involved in molestation in Delhi. As I understand, some of them were also questioned, some of them, perhaps 2 are released. Has the government of India taken it up with them, and would we demand recall of at least those diplomats, those who are involved in it?
My understanding is that none of them are serving diplomats, in the sense they are not diplomats, but they hold diplomatic passports because they are related to diplomats. There are of 3 countries. I don't want to name a single country. None of them are now in custody. We have asked our police authorities to provide us details of what they think are infringements caused by these people, and once we receive them, we will take it up with the concerned missions. So at this stage, I think I can't answer further than that, but the details are, the facts are as I have indicated to you. Yes. Yes.
Vedic Cultural Center in Moscow is to be demolished on the 15th of January. What we have learned is that no alternate arrangement has been made as of yet. Your comments on this?
This is an issue which has been simmering for some time. The ISKCON's Vedic Cultural Center has been served a notice, I understand, by local authorities for some infringements of a structure there. Our embassy has been following this up with the local authorities in Moscow, and it is our endeavor to try and work out an amicable solution. I do not know the exact dates on this, but let me assure you this has been followed fairly regularly by our embassy there. But I do not have today an update on the dates and what the situation is right now. I will try and find out and pass it on to you. But my understanding is that our ambassador has been carefully and regularly in touch with the ISKCON authorities as well as the Moscow city authorities on this matter. Yes, Manish.
Influential Iranian official, Mr. Jalili, was here last week. Do you have any update on the way forward on our economic relations in the wake of sanctions, especially oil payments, all those issues, were they on the table, were they discussed?
We are likely to have a joint commission between India and Iran in the first quarter of this year, and all these issues are to be discussed fairly candidly and in a fairly detailed manner in that format. Mr. Jalili came for discussions with his counterpart, Mr. Menon, and this is a separate issue where they have bilateral discussions between their National Security Council and ours. As regards specifics of our economic relations, etc., these are on the table when the Joint Commission meets.
Yesterday, Deputy High Commissioner of India was called to Foreign Office in Islamabad over the incident over LOC in Kashmir. What have been the actions taken by Indian side on this?
Let me try and put the facts before you. The fact is that in the early hours of January 6, Pakistani troops in the sector commenced unprovoked firing on Indian troops. The roof of a civilian house in Churunda village was damaged in the Pakistani mortar fire. Indian troops therefore undertook controlled retaliation in response. Therefore, we deny that Indian troops had crossed the line of control in the Rampur sector or had violated the ceasefire. Let me also say that India is committed to the sanctity of the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir, which is one of the most important confidence-building measures between our two countries. The ceasefire along the line of control has largely held since 2003 and is an important element in the confidence-building process between India and Pakistan. I would also like to inform you that the DGMOs of the two countries have been in touch over this incident. And we would call upon the Pakistani authorities to ensure that the sanctity of the line of control is upheld at all times and to ensure that such incidents of unprovoked firing across the LOC do not recur. Thank you. Anything else? Thank Thank you very much.